Boys and girls, welcome to Jets Talk. My name is Ryan. I'll be your pilot tonight. No intro because it's out of date and I really got to update it. So I got to do that. Glad to have you in here. Hit that like button if you're just popping in. We're going to talk about Aaron Rodgers and the Jets moving on from him. I want to get the fan reactions. We're going to do a call-in show. So you guys are going to be able to let your voices be heard. I'll leave the call-in number pinned. Where's the live chat? I don't know where it is on this. Live chat. You can click on that. You can call in. We'll get your thoughts, where the Jets should go, what they were thinking when they're saying we're moving on from Aaron Rodgers. Got a poll question in the chat. Do the Jets win more, less, or match the 2024 campaign? Jets had 5 wins this past year. Where do we think the Jets head from here? I'll give you guys my thoughts the first few minutes, and then I'll jump in and kind of show you guys, not show you guys, but I'll tell you guys the call-in number. I guess we could just kind of throw it on the screen. Bam! Here we go. You guys can let me know your thoughts in the comment section. We'll talk a little bit about all this. I'm going to do this till just before 9 o'clock. It's going to wind up being about 8:57, 8:59. And then I'm going over to the Talking Jets channel. Myself and Dom C are going to talk a little bit more about this. Plus, where do the Jets go from here from a draft perspective? Wide receiver is going to be a big need for us. So let's jump into it and just kind of talk this out here. Jets moving on from Aaron Rodgers after 2 years. The cap ramifications are less doing it now than obviously one additional year. You play one more year, there's another $35 million that has to get spread out amongst 1 year of 2026 or multiple years, 2026, 2027, if he were to continue playing for the New York Jets. That obviously would be a detriment to the team in terms of re-signing Garrett Wilson, in terms of re-signing Sauce Gardner, Breece Hall, Jermaine Johnson, Elijah Vera Tucker, a lot of our core young talent. And I think, obviously, if we had some success either of the last 2 years, they would have been all right rolling that dice and allowing some players to kind of walk for the shot at hopefully getting a Super Bowl through the 3 years that they were hoping to have Rodgers for. Now, clearly that did not work out, and you have to pivot. Got a new coach, got a new staff in the building, so you want to try and make everything cohesive for them. And I think when you look towards the back end of the season and the clear rift that appeared to be taking place during Woody Johnson and Rodgers and all that stuff, I think it felt to me like the Jets were going to move on from him. Or at least Woody would try. As much as he's saying, I'm going to keep an open mind, he's hiring the guy, and he's hearing what these people have to say. Dimitroff, right off the bat, was saying, you got to move on from Aaron Rodgers. That was the first GM candidate that we interviewed in season. So I'm sure he heard this from, like, a lot of people. And there's probably some people that were a little wishy-washy on it, like, oh, I'm sure, what does Rodgers want to do? I'd be happy with him, happy without him. That's probably not what he wanted to hear. He probably wanted to hear, look, I need a definitive answer. Glenn, while maybe saying I'd be all right if he wanted to continue, but let's get together and make a decision. Clearly with Darren Muji and probably some influence from Sean Payton, told him, like, hey, look, it's time to blow it up. Just move on, rip the Band-Aid off. It's only going to get worse for you if you keep him around and have that dead cap hit going into 26 and 27. So from a fan perspective, I feel bad for the fans that got roped into 2-year contracts for season tickets and stuff. But you know what? Maybe, according to our little poll question, you might be seeing more wins than you got this past year. Now, granted, you are losing a home game because we are playing one game overseas in London. It is going to be one of our home games next year, although I think that works out to be, 8 home games then? We don't get the 9th home game, or we would have had the 9th home game, but it goes over to London. So you really don't miss out all that much, I guess. Look, Aaron Rodgers, where do the Jets go to quarterback from here? This pivot point that we have, this little crossroads that we're at. Do you draft a quarterback? Do you go with the free agent route? Do you try and say, hey, Tyrod Taylor and Jordan Travis are our guys, and that's where we're going to ride? To me, that would be a mistake. I don't think you can run in with just Tyrod and Travis. I think you have to bring in an additional body. My preference, I think, because I have a gut feeling this 2025 season might be a little bit of a rough one, we're going to have a top pick in 2026, I think. So if you want to take a crack at a quarterback, I'd prefer like mid-rounds of the draft. Bring in a Justin Fields is probably my favorite option, to be honest. Now, I don't know if he's ever going to hit his ceiling or where he could potentially be, but we just saw Jalen Hurts win a Super Bowl with very much a running style of play while complementing it with some passing. He was what? I think he was 15 of 20, if I'm not mistaken. And I feel like Fields could give you that. And if you're telling me you could do some power offense with like Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, and Jordan Travis, that's going to, or not Jordan Travis, sorry, Justin Fields, it's going to put a lot of pressure on defenses. And at least I'm in the camp of saying I just want to be entertained for 2025. Now, realistically, from a passing statistics perspective, we're probably not getting the stat line that we saw from Rodgers this past year, and we're going back closer to the norm of what we've dealt with for the last, God, I don't know, 10 years, 15 years, whatever it's been. I think Sanchez and Fitz, I guess, were probably the two most prolific passers that we've had in the last 20 years. Not 20 years, but you know what I'm saying, 15 years. Devontae's likely gone. You probably don't have Allen Lazard anymore. I would think they're going to move on from him most likely. So receiver-wise, you're sitting with Garrett Wilson and Gibson and Corley. That does not make me feel super comfortable. I'm not a big fan of running into the season next year with just that. And as far as like free agency goes, I'm not looking at receiver in free agency. It is such a valuable position from a salary cap perspective that I'd rather have a young guy try to grow here with us. So that number 7 pick for me, if Tet McMillan's there, that's my pick. I'm making that pick all damn day. If another wide receiver rises up these ranks through the combine and everything, and you fall in love with him, that's fine too. I'm not overly picky. Tet just seems to have the size complement that we don't have with Garrett and Corley in particular. So that's where I'd probably like to go. You probably need to address some lower tier free agent options. I don't think the Jets should be big spenders. I think you should probably try to play a little bit more with the guys that want to come in here, guys that are looking to get a second chance, those types of guys, and just see what could potentially happen. Or guys that are just like, maybe they've been injured in the past and you can get them on a relatively cheap contract, kind of like a Fields, right? Like Fields hasn't really done a whole heck of a lot the last few years. I think he's going to take a prove-it contract with a team that he knows the wide receivers and knows the tight end too in Ruckert. And who knows? Maybe we wind up with a good quarterback when we're all said and done. We'll see what happens. But I like the prove-it options. There's guys from Detroit and Denver that we'll go into in the future of like free agents. Defensive tackles in particular are ones that I'm kind of keeping an eye on. I think the interior part of our defensive line definitely needs some help. Salary cap wise, if you make some moves, you could have around $60 to $70 million in cap space, designating Rodgers a post-June 1st cut, cutting Lazard, cutting Devontae. Depending on how you designate those cap hits, you can make yourself a lot of salary cap space and have a ton in 2026. So I'm not overly concerned from that perspective. I think this is probably, all things considered, the correct move to make, even though I do think we're probably going to see a worse quarterback out there for the Jets. But that doesn't mean you're not setting yourself up for a better future. Remember, the Lions, new regime comes in, Stafford gets traded, Goff comes in. Similar sort of situation with, I guess it's not similar, because what did Russ play? 1 year with Sean Payton and then got booted? I guess that's sort of where we're getting our game plan from. O'Leary's in the chat. What's up, O'Leary? O'Leary says, overreaction season. Jets fan crash out is pretty wild. Dude, so many fans are super pissed right now. I'm like I don't want to say I don't care. I care. But it doesn't bother me that Rodgers is leaving at all. I'm kind of a sit back and wait mentality. And I feel like I think that's where O'Leary's sitting on this. I think Green Bean's probably in a similar mindset. Can understand the rationale for Rodgers not staying with the Jets. Can understand the rationale. I can understand the rationale for fans that want to do it. O'Leary says, I'm with you. I just feel like it's not a huge deal. Yes, that's where I'm at. Like anyone who was like, Aaron Rodgers is coming back and we're going to have a great season. We're going to the playoffs. Like, dude, I want some of that Kool-Aid because I could not be drinking it. It was not something that I thought was very likely. I do think that Rodgers probably gave you the highest floor of quarterback and everything breaks the right way, that maybe you have an outside shot at the playoffs. I don't think that was the likelihood of it happening. Granted, and not even granted, but you lose other pieces. You lose parts of the defense. You lose some guys on offense potentially. Like, did we see a better roster around Rodgers for this year? And I'd say that's probably unlikely. But boys and girls, before I hop into the calls, I do just want to say this show is sponsored by BetUS. Aaron Rodgers, next team in week 1 for the 2025-2026 regular season, if not the Jets. Looks like they're saying, what is that? The 49ers would be the top option. The Saints would be the second option. The Raiders, the third option, which is like kind of blows my mind that like, oh yeah, Devontae, we're going back to the Raiders. That could be a thing. The Steelers are even. I guess the Steelers being even would be the best, right? Because there's no negative there. So the Steelers being the top choice, that makes a lot of sense to me. They clearly don't seem to have anything with Fields or Russell going into next year. That is an elite team with a great coach that could probably use a wide receiver with Devontae too. So like both guys go in over there. I think that makes a ton of sense. If you guys want to put some money down on this, you can go and use code YouTube150, get 150% bonus match on your first deposit up to $2,000, and you can help support the show and some of this great content you got all the time. Boys and girls, we're going to get to the phone lines. I want to hear your reactions. I've got the call-in number pinned to the live chat right now. You guys can click on that and head on over. I've got Sonny from Long Island coming up. Just before that, I see 𝐂𝐿𝐴 with a little pair, and it looks like he's maybe sweating. I'm not exactly sure what he's doing. But thank you all the same for the $2 super sticker. All right, let's go over to Sonny. Sonny, how you doing, dude?
Good. How are you, Ryan?
Hanging in there. I'm not overly surprised about Rodgers. I guess I'm kind of happy that it was like decided relatively quick. It wasn't a dragged out process.
That would probably be the only positive, in my opinion, about letting Rodgers go. I can't believe there's so many people in the fan base that are quick to move on when they have absolutely no plan at quarterback. There's no future plan. I mean, before Rodgers, we couldn't get a guy to throw for 10 touchdowns in a season. I understand that the Jets won 5 games this year. That's not all on Rodgers. There was no running game to speak of. The defense fell apart. They were one of the worst units in the league. And we literally had no coaching this year. And through that miserable season, Rodgers puts up almost 4,000 yards and 28 touchdown passes. I don't know what they're thinking of over there. I guess turn the page, try to start over again, find the guy of the future. Where are you finding him? In this year's draft? I don't think so. Are we planning on sucking out? We're punting on 25, and then we're going to hope that the Manning kid possibly comes here if we end up with the first pick. That's never going to happen.
I don't think we necessarily are like targeting Arch Manning or anything in particular. It doesn't feel like a tank for Trevor type year. I think it's one of those things where you try to give it your best shot with the best quarterback you can get in here that doesn't prevent you from re-signing your young talent. And I think Rodgers and Devontae and what you would have to do to keep him here was starting to infringe on what that future could potentially look like.
Hey,
and it's going to look like a punt.
Yeah, maybe you're right, but Rodgers came out publicly and said he would take a pay cut.
Sure. I mean, how much less is he going to play for, though? Like, is he going to take a $10 million pay cut? All things considered, it's not really that, like, impactful. Like, even if he played for zero, it's still a lot of money going into the future. So I understand that the mindset of like Rodgers potentially wanting to stay and whatever, but to me, I think you get someone like, if you want to call it Justin Fields, Hendon Hooker, some sort of middle, low tier, not low tier, but high upside.
Was the financials really that bad, Ryan, even if the guy took a pay cut for this year?
If he took a pay cut, you're still got to redo Devontae's contract. I don't think you're just doing the Rodgers experiment. The cap hit goes, I think it would have been $63 million if he played for next year. So maybe it's looking like a $55 million or something like that. If it took like a $10 million
like
pay cut.
40 something million.
43, yeah. If it's all in one season, if it's split over it would be like 14 this year and like, I don't know, 30 some odd.
Here's
next
the aggravating part, Ryan. They created two holes because now you only got Garrett Wilson as the only receiver on the team.
Now, I do think that I don't think you're wrong, but I think the hole at quarterback, even with Rodgers coming back, was still going to be a big need. And I don't think, obviously with receiver being a need as well, I think receiver to me is the top need in the draft. Like if you can get Ted McMillan, that's the move to make, or a top wide receiver in general. I think you have to add one. And then quarterback, I think you could take that lower end swing on a Fields, on a, I've seen McKee's name thrown around out there, whatever it is.
Yeah,
but something that doesn't necessarily impede you from going high for a quarterback in 26 if you really want to. So it kind of gives you two cracks at it. It allows you an opportunity to like see what Jordan Travis has. Maybe the team does like him. But I understand the frustration.
I'm tired of watching the losing, Ryan. I've been a fan for over 30 years now, and it's quite miserable. It's getting to the point where it's really out of hand, and
I understand
it ceases to surprise you.
No, it does. Like literally every year I've been saying for like probably 4 years now, well, it can't get worse than last year. And I'm done. I'm just not saying it. I'm just not going to say it. I'm just, you know what? It can get worse than this past year. It's entirely possible. And I'm strapping in for what is probably going to be a rocky ride. I'm setting my expectations low so they can step over them and make me, slightly happy. So, Sonny, I appreciate you calling in.
Thanks for taking my call.
But you're going to get ejected from the cockpit. Where's my button? There's my button. You're out of here. Thank you, Sonny, for the call in. I've got Charles, then Ryder calling in. Let's see what we got. Before I do that, I do just want to recognize a few super chats. I got Sean coming in. Oh, hold on. I got to hide Rodgers here. Rodgers getting in the way. Whoops. Where'd he go? There we go. Rodgers will go right there. Draft day trade idea. If one of the top two quarterbacks falls out of the top three, should New York Jets trade up with Jacksonville, jump the Raiders to get a quarterback? Draft day trade only. I don't really want to do it. Because I think Cam Ward's going to go one, and I think if I had to pick one of the two, I think Cam's probably the one I would do. And I don't see Sanders getting past the Giants. I think that would be a really dumb move. Although I guess in this situation, you're probably saying maybe Travis Hunter goes 1, Abdul Carter goes 2, Sanders goes 3. I would think the Patriots would trade it out of 4 at that point, but maybe not. And then Jacksonville's at 5. So maybe depending on what you would have to give up, but I don't particularly want to see that happen. I think I would like to go the best player available route, and I don't know if that's a quarterback. But let me know what you would think you'd give up for that, because if it's only going up, two spots, maybe it's not horrible. I think there's a lot of other swings I could take at this draft while also getting a blue chipper at the top. Fletch says, I would actually be pretty excited about Tyrod Fields' quarterback room. Would be a fun, at least, to have two dynamic dual threat quarterbacks. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Team entertainment, baby. Just entertain me. Plus, I think Fields is a rock solid locker room guy. And I think Tyrod and Jordan Travis would both be those locker room type guys. Obviously with the injury from Travis, I think there's a certain lens that he sees the game through now. Will he ever be anything? I have no idea. I mean, it wouldn't even shock me if he wasn't on the team next year. But I hope we get to see him in preseason and we get to see what he we were hoping he could be had he not been injured. But yeah, I'm a big fan of the Fields Tyrod tandem in the backfield. All right. Let's go over to Charles. Charles, how you doing, dude?
Good, man. How are you?
Hanging in there. Jets.
This does not surprise me. I had a feeling this was going to happen considering all the craziness that happened under Rodgers and of all the controversy happened under Rodgers.
Mm-hmm.
I would be open to Justin Fields coming to the Jets, but I would like Tyrod to be at the start of this upcoming season.
Okay. Do you have faith that he's going to stay healthy? And who would the backup quarterback be? Would it be Travis, or are you thinking a different option?
I'm thinking Travis, but if the Jets somehow get Jackson Dart, which I think is highly unlikely, that would be interesting too.
Jackson Dart's an interesting cat. I've seen a lot of people don't like him, but I've seen a lot of people do like him. Super polarizing. So who knows? Maybe he's the next Patrick Mahomes, or maybe he's the next Zach Wilson. You don't know.
That's true too. Well, speaking of Patrick Mahomes, he got his ass kicked in the Super Bowl yesterday.
Oh, it felt so good to watch that. I thoroughly enjoyed that whooping he took. What were your thoughts overall in the Super Bowl, if you don't mind me asking?
They were good. I'm happy the Jalen Hurts got the MVP. He deserved it. He was a good quarterback. I've always believed he's a good quarterback, and Saquon won a championship. I know some Jet fans are pissed off that Mekhi Becton won a championship, but hey, he busted his ass off for that team.
Yeah, I was a little salty with him winning. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, man, I kind of didn't want to see it, but I wanted to see Barkley get it. And it kind of jabs the Giants a little bit, which isn't a bad thing.
Yeah, they were idiots in not keeping Barkley. But anyway, I think the Jets should also, for this upcoming season, try to reestablish the offensive line a little bit, add some more pieces, add some more depth to it. Mm-hmm. Plus, as for a quarterback, I would like Tyrod to start. I understand Tyrod has been injured a lot throughout his career, but when he plays, he's a damn good player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, look, I very much want Tyrod to, I think it was O'Leary. O'Leary posted a video of Tyrod just ripping the ball down the field in a Giants uniform. I was like, oh, that was so cool. I could totally get behind Tyrod. I just don't trust him to stay healthy for a full year. If you could give me Tyrod for a healthy season, I wouldn't necessarily go out and look for a quarterback.
Well, Tyrod did have some great success with the Bills before they moved on from him to Josh Allen.
Sure,
so,
it was a decade ago.
I know that, but I'm saying him ripping the ball with the Giants was no surprise to me because he does have a good arm. He does have great mobility, and he seems like a classy guy in the locker room. That's all that matters to me. So, yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about. Hopefully, if Rodgers retires or plays for another team, I could really care less.
I just don't really want to see him do well and go to an NFC Championship game or an AFC Championship game. It would just make my soul hurt. Charles, you've been ejected from the cockpit. Oh, man. We got Ryder and then Sam coming in. Let's go over to Ryder. Ryder, how you doing, dude? Can you see me?
Hey, Ryan, how you doing?
Good. Talk to me. How you feeling about Rodgers not coming back?
I had a good feeling that was going to happen, and I wasn't so much as shocked, but I'm happy that, well, not happy, but I'm excited to see how the Jets, go on with this, go on with how this is. I feel like I feel like Justin Fields is a great option, but if we somehow don't get Justin Fields, if he somehow or something happens, I feel like Jordan Travis would be a good starter, and have him fight it out with Tyrod Taylor and see how that happens. But I really hope that Justin Fields happens, and then over on the defensive side, we do need some D linemen, and yeah.
Now, as far as the quarterback situation goes, do you think that whoever is the quarterback is going to lead us to more wins than the 5 wins we got this year, match the 5 wins, or you think it's going to be a rough season and maybe we lose more games than we had this past year?
I personally feel like I've been saying how we're going to do better than this year, but I feel like we're not going to make it to the playoffs. I feel like we're going to have like how we have been in the past couple years, a 7-10 record around there.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe the year after that, after we have a year to like get this new regime with this coaching staff, then I feel like we can like start cooking again. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And then yesterday, it was the best to see Patrick Mahomes lose by that bad.
Just got absolutely smacked around. It was not even close. And your boy won $500 on a grid. I was so pumped. I was like, oh, this girl's going to win the $500. Like, oh, it's totally fine. And then that like wacky touchdown 2-point conversion happens. I was like, someone just won. And I was like, oh, it's me. So I'm happy. I had a good Super Bowl, all things considered.
That was, yeah, everyone's a lot of people in my school has been saying how like it's been depressing how it was such a blowout, but I personally love it because I hate Patrick Mahomes and how much he wins, and I was so happy how he got blown out.
It's like there's a little bit of Tom Brady in my mind when I watch Patrick Mahomes. The complaining about not getting calls and like all that sort of stuff. It just like it rubbed me the wrong way for the last like few years now at this point. And I was very much in the camp of like, I don't want to see the Chiefs or the Eagles like get into the Super Bowl. We got into like the playoffs and then it was like the Final Four. I was like, no, don't want to see this. So this was ultimately, I think, the best outcome that I could have asked for, other than Team Meteor just whacking out the stadium. Ryder, thank you so much for the call. You're been ejected from the cockpit. Thank you, Ryder, as always, for calling in. All right, guys, make sure you hang tight in here. I've got Sam, and then I got our boy Conor coming up, and then Rich Rise. Let's go over to Sam. Sam, how you doing, dude?
Good. How about you?
Dude, I don't know. I can kind of breathe easy because at least like we know Rodgers isn't coming back, or at least it seems like that's the direction they're headed. And then I'm also sort of like, I don't know what they're gonna do.
I had a gut feeling from the start he wasn't coming back because a 42-year-old quarterback in a new system just doesn't equate to any kind of success.
Old dog
I think it would have been,
kind of a
you're
thing.
Basically doing the same thing. You might as well just take a shot in the dark with one of these young backup quarterbacks one of these teams have. Just throw a dart at a dartboard and just hope. And then if it works out, great. If not, you got a hell of a class 2 years from now. So
now, do you think like with Rodgers leaving, that probably means Devontae's leaving? Does that elevate receiver for you as a need? Like, how do you want to approach the offseason?
So Ted McMillan was a guy I wanted at 7 from the start. Him and Mason Graham, so both of those guys. But I wouldn't be opposed to necessarily like trading down and maybe getting like a Luther Burden instead. Getting another pick maybe in the second, where you can take, Fannin early, and then you could grab a tackle or another, tackle on the offensive side or defensive side. I just think the offense is going to need an overhaul, pretty much in general. I'm not saying, get rid of your young pieces or anything, but the line's pretty stable. You got to get some guys in there because you're probably cutting Lazard at the end of or before the season starts also, even though I think it hurts you a little more than it helps you if you cut him, but you might as well just, instead of slowly letting, the team bleed money out, just, sever the arm right now and just be done with it.
Yeah, just kind of like know what you're getting into for 2026. And this is sort of like not like a trial by fire, but like guys that go through all this sort of, hopefully grow together. Hopefully, Glenn is as good of a leader as he appears to come off as in like the HBO Hard Knocks series and can galvanize this team. But I don't know how to grapple with like the players that have dealt with so many losses. We saw Quinnen Williams put like the thumbs down and like the, the rebuild, and then he deletes his Twitter, or someone tells him to delete his Twitter. Like that doesn't feel great.
No, that hurts, especially the guy that, you kind of built your defense around. Him being frustrated, pretty much sucks. But at the end of the day, I was looking at Dan Campbell struggled real early with his coaching career. He started, I think it was like 3-13 his first year. And then his second year, he didn't start getting hot till the end. So, and his team was worse off than what we have right now. They didn't really have those pieces
caught them
in
right
place,
when
so.
they were getting hot, if I'm not mistaken. Like they were the ones that kind of knocked us out of that playoff run with Mike White, and they got that year was the Penei Sewell year that they went 3 wins.
I think so.
I think it was.
No, I think that was the year after.
Oh.
Because I
Well.
think we had our young core and like the, our four. I think that was the year Zach went out injured again.
So let me know. What do you think? More
some.
wins, less wins, equal wins? 5 wins this past year.
I think we're staying about the same, maybe one more, but I'm
Okay.
not really seeing a lot of success, even though our schedule is easier this year. It's unfortunate, but
yeah, it's gonna be a rough one. Ryder, Sam, no, not Ryder. Whew. Sam, thank you so much for the call. I'll talk to you later, dude. Boom, you bit. You're out of here from the cockpit. All right, we got Conor, and then we got Rich Rise coming up. So let's go over to our boy Conor. Conor, how you doing, dude?
Ryan, how are you?
I am hanging in there. I want to hear your thoughts. Just lay it all out there. What are you thinking about the Rodgers not coming back, and how do the Jets sort of move on from here?
Ryan, I've wanted Rodgers gone at this point for the longest time. For a lot of different reasons. He was a bottom 10 quarterback last season. I know a lot of people are gonna, my biggest thing here, Ryan, for the people who wanted Aaron Rodgers back, is they immediately forget about the first 12 weeks of the season and how he looked, the first 12 games. And he beat Jacksonville, a game they should have lost because Jeff Ulbrich couldn't manage a clock. Oh, they took Miami into overtime. Rodgers threw for over 300 yards. Oh, Rodgers looked great in week 18. I had Joe Caporoso on. He made a great point. He said, I wish because he didn't want Rodgers back. He said, I wish the Buffalo game was week 18 and Miami was week 17. Could you imagine if the Jets got steamrolled on the road 40-14? Then nobody would have wanted Rodgers back under any circumstance. Absolutely nobody. So I think the fact that they got somewhat they played a nice game at home against Miami in week 18 where it was blatantly clear Miami didn't really care after they were officially eliminated when the Broncos went up big there. So you can't pay a bottom 10 quarterback $37.5 million who, let's be real. I know I'm not the biggest proponent of calling Aaron Rodgers a cancer, but what we saw last year, I'd say he was more towards a cancer than he was a leader, with all the off-field distractions, telling his teammates to stop listening to the media, but he goes on the Pat McAfee show every week and is calling out his wide receiver for running the wrong route. That's okay if you want to do that when you're a top 5, top 10 quarterback, but when you're a bottom 10 quarterback, that stuff can't fly. So I'm happy ultimately they moved on from Aaron Rodgers. I'm a big Tyrod Taylor guy. Tyrod Taylor's been a 500 quarterback. He does not turn the ball over. He's still mobile. You give me Tyrod Taylor, you sign a Marcus Mariota, a Drew Lock in free agency, something like that. I would be okay with it. I know it's not the most sexy option out there, but that's what it's going to have to be like. Again, Aaron Rodgers isn't particularly sexy either. For those saying that he won us 5 games last season, I do understand there are a lot of other factors. However, the record was 5-12. Some names I wanted to get your thoughts on quickly here, Ryan, before I hop off. Zach Rosenblatt listed 20 quarterback candidates, and a few that caught my eye. Kyler Murray was listed as a trade target, which was really, really interesting. Because my first thought was I would love Kyler Murray. Now, among all these options, Kyler Murray's my favorite. He has the most upside. He's former number 1 overall pick. What is his value, though? Is it a second, third round pick? That's another one of my questions. Jake Browning from the Bengals was another interesting name that caught my eye, and Tanner McKee from the Eagles.
Stanford.
Was a name there. I want to get your thoughts, particularly on Kyler Murray. What does his trade value look like?
Interesting. While we're talking, let me pull up his actual contract. I don't know what it is offhand. Let's see. I did not hear that. It's funny because I did a few years ago talk about Kyler getting traded. Let's see.
5 years, 230. Let's go.
So he would basically be $25 million next year. Oh no, maybe more. Hold on. 25 roster bonus. So it'd be a little bit of an elevated year. This is his final year with guaranteed salary, so he's probably signing a new deal realistically if he's traded. You gotta think. Let's see.
You gotta at least take a call. You gotta at least listen to offers. If Kyler Murray's on the trade block.
My biggest issue with Kyler is the contract that they wanted to put in place where like he had to watch X amount of game film. Like if you have to put that in your franchise quarterback's like contract, that to me is a massive red flag.
That was a few years ago. Yeah, I remember that. And also one more thing, those concerned about the cap, I was in Over the Cap earlier today, but before you re-sign all these guys, you can realistically, with all these cuts, cutting Devontae post June 1, freeing up over $30 million, cutting Rodgers post June 1, which unfortunately I think they're going to do. I think they should cut him pre June 1, eat all the cap next season. You could free up over $100 million in cap room, which is really interesting because I think the reputation the Jets are getting right now is, oh my God, they have no cap room, they can't do anything in free agency. You cut, the Max Mitchells, the Carter Warrens, Greg Zuerlein, Anders Carlson is still somehow under contract. Fedarian Mathis, former commander, is under contract. Those cuts start to add up. You make some cuts. I think I got up to like $98 or $101 million in cap room before re-signing all those guys. So I don't think the Jets are going to be as aggressive in free agency as prior years, but don't expect them to just shut that down completely. That's what I have to say regarding free agency.
I think you're spot on. When I did just the Rodgers, Devontae, Lazard sort of cuts, and I got to like 77 million, I was like, all right, cool. And that's with like 130 or 140 million in 2026 too. So there's a lot of money to kind of re-sign your own guys. As far as like how I see us going, I think we will stay that lower end kind of player. Maybe we draft a safety, or not draft, but bring in a safety that's a little more expensive.
Justin Reed is a really interesting name.
A lot of people throwing that name out there. I could totally see that. Give him a halfway decent contract. How old is he right now? I don't actually know.
I think he's like 28. I might be wrong.
Okay, so that's still fine. Yeah, you get him for like 3 years on a solid deal.
27.
Yeah. Perfect. 3 year, get him for like 3 years, sign him to a 5-year deal, cut him after 3 years or something like that. Tanner McKee's an interesting one to me because I like Tanner coming out of Stanford, and if you can get him for not a crazy ton, like I don't know what he would cost. He had to be like a 6th round pick.
Maybe like a
was he a 6th rounder last year?
Let me 6th or 7th.
He was late. I liked him a lot. If we didn't go with Jordan Travis, Tanner McKee was the other. Him and Milton. I liked all 3 of those guys as like late round swings.
He was a 6th round pick. I mean, maybe you could do like, I would give up a conditional 4th maybe in 2026, like if he plays X amount of snaps. The thing is, I don't feel comfortable with just giving him the starting job right away. Like
Agreed.
If you brought him in, I would want Tyrod Taylor still to start. Like there are only a handful of guys I would take over Tyrod.
Is there anyone in this class, before I let you go, is there anyone in this class of quarterbacks that could provide a similar value to a Tanner McKee, or do you value Tanner McKee as a elevated status because his contract's only going to have 3 years left, where you could draft a quarterback in this year's class that would be under contract for 4 years? And I don't know how different, like let's say a 4th round Will Howard or
Kyle McCord.
McCord is an interesting name. One of those guys. Like, how do you feel any sort of way, I guess, with the mid-round quarterback potential?
Ryan, I'd take a quarterback as early as round 4. I just don't think any of the guys are worth round 3 unless Dart is there, which I don't think he will be there in the 3rd round. Will Howard, I'm a fan of in the 4th. Really like Jalen Milroe because the upside, the athleticism, kind of reminds me of Joe Milton, like from the inaccuracy standpoint, but with all the upside. Just as I think he has slightly a higher ceiling than Joe Milton did. That's why Joe Milton was a 6th round pick last year. Kyle McCord is probably one of my favorite realistic options for the Jets. Reminds me a lot of Jared Goff. That's my comp for him from a size standpoint, pocket passer, nice ball, able to add layers, touch, velocity, all that stuff. One knock, the athleticism isn't there and he struggles under pressure, but you're telling me Kyle McCord is there in the 4th round. Why not bring it up? Where's number 6? Because Mark Sanchez grew up being a Jets fan. Can't hurt as, bringing him in as a 3rd string quarterback's backup, pending if Jordan Travis is healthy. Ryan, it's a conversation for another night, but Jordan Travis for Hendon Hooker, straight up, sign me up all day.
Oh, man, you guys heard it from Conor first. Conor, thank you so much for the call-in. You're ejected from the cockpit. Boys and girls, if you haven't followed Conor, make sure you follow his channel. He has some great guests on there and just an all-around good dude. I got Rich Rise, then Lasal, then Wyatt coming up, so let's go over to Rich. Rich, how you doing, dude?
Hey, am I on? Hey, what's up, Ryan?
On. How you doing, dude? How you feeling about the Jets not bringing Rodgers back?
I can't hear you from my phone. Can you hear me?
I got you loud and clear. Can you hear me? There's going to be a big lag from whatever you're doing.
I can hear you. I got my iPad on one screen, my phone
Call
What's
back
up?
in. Boom! You've been ejected from the cockpit. Rich, I'll pick you up as soon as you come in. Give me another call and let's see where it goes. Before I go over to Lasal and Wyatt, I do just want to drop sponsor of the channel. Thank you so much, Mando. Just because of my takes may stink doesn't mean you guys have to stink. And that's where the sponsor of today's video comes in. Mando reached out and said, Ryan, your team has stunk for a very long time, so we know that you understand what stinking is. And I said, yeah, absolutely. They're like, so bad, in fact, that we think we can smell you through the camera. And I was like, man, that's very aggressive. Thank you. But what do I got to do? They're like, hey, we're going to send you out some product. We want you to test it out. We want you to be honest with your audience. And then if you like it, offer up a promo code. I was like, all right, cool. So they sent me out the starter pack. I got the Mount Fuji deodorant. Really enjoy that. Put that on every day. In the summer, I've got what is known as a chafing problem, like 2 chestnuts over a roasting fire type problem. This stuff can be put on anything. Your feet, your butt crack, your grundle, your armpits, your hands, boobies, rolls, under boobies, anywhere. This stuff is totally safe. And throwing this on the chafing areas, very, very appreciated. It comes with 2 free gifts as well. I chose the bourbon leather body wash. Becca has really liked that, but I think my favorite thing in the pack is honestly the deodorant wipes. I throw this in my to-go bag and I can just freshen up no matter where I am throughout my day. And maybe I was just yelling at a camera underneath some hot lights and I just need to look a little bit nicer, smell a little bit nicer when I walk out of the cockpit here. So guys, if you want to get in on this, I've really enjoyed it. Shopmando.com, promo code JetsTalk. That's shopmando.com, promo code JetsTalk is going to get you $5 off. That's a 40% off savings on their starter pack. Thank you so much for sponsoring the channel. All right, boys and girls, let's try to get our guy Rich back in here. Rich, throw your camera on if you can hear me. Rich. Nope. All right, I'm going to unassign that for right now. Let's go over to Lasal and then Wyatt. Lasal, how you doing?
What's good? What's good, man? How are you doing?
Hanging in there. How you feeling about Rodgers not coming back to the Jets?
I feel okay with it. I'm okay with it. Like my family is okay, like definitely okay with it. They don't like him like as a person, especially my mom. So when she heard that he was gone, she was like, oh my god, oh yeah, they're doing a good thing here. I'm like, we're like, well, that's not what the other fans say. And he said, well, those fans are idiots. and I was like, oh my god, like she's an Italian, like she gives 0 fucks. Whatever comes out of her mouth is what she means, and that's why we love our moms, But
absolutely,
I feel good about it. In a sense, like Aaron Rodgers. Like I understand why people like Jake Asman. I went on his show and he basically called me an a-hole. He basically called me an a-hole because I didn't really agree with him. And but he did apologize. Like he's just mad. Like any fan is. Like I'm not saying that you don't deserve to be mad. I'm just like, you guys look into it through Aaron Glenn's perspective or Darren Moogie's perspective. Do you want to have this quarterback in that is gonna be doing like his podcasts and stuff, and going to air out their laundry in the media all the time, or would you rather like end with this roster? The roster is not as good as people think. When I told Jack Asman that, it's like, well, what about the Chargers? The Chargers, they needed an offensive line help, a wide receiver, and a new head coach, and they got all those things in the draft. They got all the offense, like the offensive line, they fixed. The offensive line they fixed. The wide receiver, they got Ladd McConkey, who I think is going to be a great wide receiver field for them for years to come. And they got Jim Harbaugh, that definitely helped out their coaching. And I feel like we have way more holes to fill, more than the Chargers at the time. And do you want to have like Aaron Rodgers like be having to deal with the fact that you only have 2 wide receivers like
well, we would have brought Devontae back if Rodgers was here. I understand the argument for him. I'm not beat up for moving off.
Yeah,
from
no,
the
it's
Jets, and
like
that
I'm not
sucks.
beat up. I'm not beat up beater. That's the thing. It's like what I want to have him throw back if he took the pay cut and stuff like that. Yeah, sure. But if he did, but if he didn't and they want him gone, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to trust Aaron Glenn, and Darren Mugi with their decision.
All right.
At the end of the
I
day,
like it, Lasco.
At the end of the day,
glass half full kind of thing. I understand.
half full, you know.
Lasco, you better check that from the cockpit. Boom. All right, I got Wyatt here. I'm going to try Rich, though, one more time. I'm going to try Rich, then we're going to go over to Wyatt. All right. Rich, how you doing, dude?
Hey, finally it works. Thanks for taking my call, man.
It's all good, dude. How are you feeling about Rodgers and him not coming back to the Jets?
So I'm happy. I'm a big fan of Jake Asman. He is very unhappy, which I totally respect. To all the Jets fans out there, I respect it, guys. We haven't made the playoffs in 14 years. However, we actually have a really, really talented young core. And if we get Rodgers to stay for an extra year, not only are we paying him, we're paying Devontae Adams like $38 million. Do you guys think that we're going to pay a running back like Breece Hall, who's really good, and pay these guys? Absolutely not. I just don't see it. And I'm scared about the cap and keeping our stars. Yeah, man. And Jake makes a good point. What's the plan then if we don't get Rodgers? It's not going to be the best season, honestly, at the quarterback position, but there's no long-term plan beyond Rodgers until we draft a guy, and this quarterback class doesn't look like the class to do it, so I'm happy for that reason.
Yeah, I think you're spot on as far as like what is the plan if not Rodgers, and I think the plan is we got to try and find a quarterback, and this year might hurt. It's resetting a lot of cap. We signed up for this exact situation when Rodgers was coming on board. It was like, okay, we're going to get 2, maybe 3 years of Rodgers, and then we're going to have to deal with some cap hit. It's going to have to happen. And we're just taking our medicine now, and I think it's part of the situation is I don't think Rodgers really wanted to come back and play for the Jets. I think he was kind of hoping they would move off of him. I don't think he really wanted to retire. And I think it's just a matter of which guy wanted to be the bad guy, and the Jets just decided to pull the Band-Aid off. I think from a culture perspective, not that Rodgers was a bad leader, but I think he didn't do the things that I would want a good leader to do. Going on McAfee and airing out dirty laundry every week, while it was fun from a content perspective, not fun in the locker room. It was Aaron Rodgers and 52 other guys. It was not, one of 53. And that, to me, was part of the decision that they made there. And realistically, we're not getting better quarterback play than what we got out of Aaron Rodgers last year from a statistical standpoint. Conor was on here earlier, and he even mentioned, he was a bottom 10 quarterback this year. And I have a hard time putting him in a top half of the quarterback conversation aside from the glorified stats that he had. But there were plenty of times early on in that season where we had opportunities to win and he just could not punch it in on the goal line. He could not, he threw multiple interceptions against Minnesota that cost us a game. And he did pick it up towards the end. So my only benefit was okay, well, Todd Downing calling plays and not Hackett helped. Him getting healthy helped. No Tyron Smith and Olu playing left tackle helped. So what could he look like an entire season? I was going on hope, but it could very well have looked like the same exact thing we got this past year with Buddy Ball, only we put ourselves in a bigger cap hole. And like you said, we couldn't re-sign any of our young guys. So I understand.
Closing thoughts. Think about the future, guys. We got a young core. Let's lock these guys up. It's going to suck if we have another losing season, especially for Garrett. But you know what? We have his rights for a couple more years if we can draft a good quarterback and build a team around him and draft the quarterback in a year, build the team this year. We could have a bright future. So keep your chins up. Please, guys.
I love it. Rich, you have been ejected from the cockpit. Good call. Good thoughts. Good thoughts. Let's hop over to Wyatt. Wyatt, how you doing, brother?
Good. How are you?
Hanging in there. This team gives me heartburn sometimes. How are you feeling on the whole Rodgers not being a New York Jet next year?
I think it's stupid. Rodgers, that kid said he was bottom 10. He was actually ranked 15 in the NFL. And as far as Jets quarterbacks goes, he's probably the best we've had since Chad Pennington, and one of the better quarterbacks the Jets have ever had. We lost a lot of games, and I agree with you. There were moments at the end of games, especially where we had a chance to come back and Rodgers couldn't finish it. But I think blaming a losing season on him is ridiculous. Our defense shut down after we lost Saleh, bad. Our kicker lost us 3 games single-handedly.
Yeah, no, I do agree. I don't think last year's season was solely on Rodgers. I think he was part of the problem. I think Saleh and Hackett were part of the problem. I think the regression from the defense and the defensive line in particular was a massive problem. If you could have stopped the run, like if we had a top 5 defense like we had in the past, 2 years, I think the Jets probably make the playoffs. I think they figure out a way to do that. And then, probably a few switches here and there. Like if you didn't have Tyron Smith and you had Olu playing, Rodgers might have a little more confidence. He might have been playing better earlier in the season and not been hurt. Because I do think there was some, there was a lag period with him coming back. And there was interest in me to see, well, what could happen next year? But do I want to gamble on what could happen if it means maybe losing some of the young guys that might be able to be here for a while? The biggest concern for me is, do the young guys want to be here and go through another year, 2, maybe 3-year rebuild and like burn their entire career rebuilding the entire time?
Right. And then there are good reasons to get rid of Rodgers, but I also don't like this take that he was a poison or had a bad attitude. Let's not forget, he took the largest pay cut in sports history to be on this team. He asked to come here. And a lot of the things we've heard that are negative about Rodgers never came directly from Rodgers. And just erasing all the things that happened to Rodgers between him and the media is also ridiculous. The media went after Rodgers hard when he did the anti-vax stuff. I'm not saying it was smart, but they had a vendetta against the man. So unless you hear it directly from another player, it's probably bullshit. And Rodgers I only ever heard positive things about Rodgers when I heard his teammates talking about it. Rarely have I ever heard negative stuff about him. So
yeah,
I hate
100%.
getting rid of him.
I definitely agree with that aspect of it. I think there's guys in the locker room that did like him. I think there are issues with me with how I would like to see our quarterback handle the media and stuff. I felt like he came off kind of arrogant in some of the pressers. I think he definitely threw guys under the bus, coaches and players. Now, maybe that's holding guys accountable. I think there's, probably some degree of an argument for that. But I think the McAfee stuff, while I enjoyed watching it, was definitely not like it felt very much like 52
Agreed.
guys and Rodgers as opposed to a team and a cohesive unit. And
that was my biggest issue with him, was the McAfee crap. I'll finish on a good note. We have the best defensive coordinator last year is our head coach, best rated by players. Our defensive coordinator was number 2. Those are 2 of the highest rated coaches by players in the NFL on the defensive side. And they're both on our team next year. We're going to be okay. I'm not worried about it. I'm sure they have a plan, and I think Tyrod Taylor will be all right. And I think our backup quarterback we drafted last year, if Jordan Travis ever gets healthy, he's probably going to be a damn good quarterback. So I'm not worried about it. If we have to take a middling season next year, that's fine. I think we'll make the playoffs next year. I do. We have a damn good coach.
That is ballsy. Wyatt, you got me glass half full and chubbed up. I love it. Wyatt, you've been ejected from the cockpit. Oh, boys and girls. I see you guys calling in. You know what? I'm going to take one more. I'm going to take Cameron real quick, and then I got to hop over to the Talkin' Jets show with Dom C. So we're going to talk a little bit more. I want to get your guys' thoughts over there. So let's jump in. Let's go over to Cameron. Cameron, how you doing, dude?
Oh, I was muted. I muted myself so that I wouldn't, talk too early. How are you?
It's okay. I'm doing all right. I'm feeling okay. Oh, man, that sweatshirt looks good on you.
Yeah, I got to support the stream,
Oh, thank you.
I've been talking here so long, I thought I might as well throw some money your way.
I appreciate it. Light it on fire if you can. I really do appreciate it.
No,
what are your
that's the
thoughts?
Jets
Rodgers
season,
not coming
your-
back
not your
now. And
product.
Rodgers not coming back. What are your thoughts?
I mean, Aaron Glenn is a take no shit coach, you can tell. So it doesn't surprise me that he would walk in the building, see the crap that Aaron Rodgers has given Matt LaFleur and Robert Saleh and Jeff Ulbrich, and we can go for a while here, and just go, you know what, F it. I'm not doing this. I'm not dealing with you. You didn't play well enough, even though you played okay down the stretch, to make it worth it. And the cap hit, and who knows if he'd be willing to mentor a new quarterback, a young quarterback, whether it's Travis or if he drafts someone this year or next year. He probably just went, this is my team now. I'm not going to set a standard where I'm going to acquiesce to a player. I'm going to make this my roster, my culture. I saw what happens in Detroit with a good culture, and I'm going to make damn sure that this team follows my rule and not someone else's. I
think you're spot on. I think this almost felt very Parcellian with like the way, like Like, I'm making the decision. I'm the guy in charge, moving on from Rodgers. And, part of me feels like Rodgers is kind of like, hey, like, I know we're not going to win much next year. Like, if you want to release me, it's okay. So it's almost like oh, I was wronged by the Jets for letting me go. So he gets to have that little, nemesis arch. And then Aaron Glenn gets the benefit of being like, I told him he had to go. And like both sides are like happy, but the fans are pissed off. Like that's sort of the way I kind of read it right now.
I think we're better off for it, honestly. But as I threw your way last night in the chat, I wouldn't draft a quarterback this year. I don't. I've gone through and I've scouted pretty much any of the players the Jets might have interest in. Whenever you get to a draft special, I'd love to go over that with you. But the long and the short of it is I didn't find a single quarterback who, to me, was special enough to invest in this year. You play it out into next year. Like there's guys who have plenty of talent, but let's take McCourty. I have 18 seconds from Syracuse. He plays well when everything is good around him, but he's not going to pull a team forward. You put him on a good roster with open receivers and it's schemed up well, he'll hit you all day long. But you put him in a muddy pocket, he tends to look down. And to do that, and New York's not going to have the best offensive line, we assume, again. So we don't want to put him out there and his weaknesses get compounded.
I think that's fair. I like the mid-round swing at a quarterback, but at the same time, that 4th round pick, if that's where we're kind of feeling, or late 3rd round pick, that could still be a starter at another position. Like that could be a safety, that could be a linebacker.
There's some good linebackers in the 4th round.
That's where I sort of like, I get pulled in this different direction of like, man, I want him.
Texas Tech, who's like a 4th round linebacker. He is damn fast sideline to sideline. That kid will blow you up. And I'm sorry, I'd rather have him than Jalen Milroe if he were to fall that far at quarterback. I just would.
Oh man, if Milroe fell that far, I would pull the
Well,
trigger.
maybe you take him in the 4th if he falls that far.
I enjoy his speed. But no, I get what you're saying. I understand. Like instead of the random swing that might just be throwing out like a draft pick, you get someone that could be a starter. The only thing I will say about drafting a quarterback in the mid rounds is like I'm still not sure Jordan Travis is going to be on this team week 1 next year. Like I think you could have a future backup quarterback that you take in that mid rounds that would still fill a need, even though it's not a critical need right now. Because you got Tyrod.
More? I know you mentioned Milroe.
McCord's interesting. Will Howard, Gabriel from Oregon's interesting. Like if
Gabriel's a little small though.
He is. He is. I'm not super tall though, so I got a soft spot for short people.
Sure. I mean, I'm 5'10", so I get it, but it's still like
I know. It's an outside the box thing. Connor brought up possibly trading for Kyler. I mean, he's definitely the best quarterback you could get.
I would take it.
I don't know.
There's a lot that comes with him, though.
There is.
He's he's a lot of work, and yes, he's a stupid special talent.
He's so
But you have to get his head screwed on straight, and not to change sports here, but it's like Kyrie Irving. When his head's on straight, he's damn good. But when he's looking around, like, outside of football or basketball, he's too much to deal with. I love the guy. I love watching him. And in
Super
a dead sprint, good luck. I mean, seriously. Rocket for an arm. What about the guy at Notre Dame, Leonard?
I haven't watched
he's
enough
got the size.
of him, honestly. Like, I mean, I know him from like the playoffs, but that's about all I know him from.
My sister's a professor at Notre Dame,
So
and I saw a couple of his games, and again, he needs a clean pocket because he's not much of an escape guy, but he will tear you apart with completion after completion after completion after. It's beautiful when he gets it going, but his confidence can shake quickly. So I feel like if we build the roster around him, he could be a good backup. Learning from someone like Tyrod, something like that.
Just kind of a dart throw that doesn't necessarily cost you a crazy ton and whatnot. Cameron.
Exactly.
I appreciate your time.
Thanks as always, Ryan.
You look
Have a
good
good
in
one.
this sweatshirt. And you've been ejected from the cockpit. Boys and girls, I'm going to head over to talk with Dom C over at the Talkin' Jets channel. So head over there. I think the chat will probably push itself over to there. 56% of you guys say the Jets will win more games than this past year. 18% say we're going to match it. And 27% say we are going to win less. So that is where the fan base sort of stands right now. Before I head over, just want to say thank you to BetUS for sponsoring the show. Get a 150% bonus match on your first deposit up to $2,000 with code YouTube150. You can head over there and bet on who Aaron Rodgers' Week 1 team in 2025 and 2026 is going to be, if not the Jets. No option for retired in there. But top team appears to be the Steelers with even odds. And then you got the 49ers, the Saints, and the Raiders kind of rounding out that top set of odds, if you will. I don't know. I have no idea where he goes. Steelers, I feel like, makes the most sense because it's a win now type roster. Doesn't have to go overly far away. He's one state over. That's a tough division, though. Real tough division. Boys, that's going to be it from me. I very much appreciate you hanging out in here with me. Hit that like button if you'd enjoyed the stream. And then come see Dom and I over at the Talking Jets channel in just a minute's time.